There you go. We all good? Good evening. I'd like to call the order the January 25th meeting of the Woodland Park Planning Commission. Roll call, please.
Vice Chair Lee Brown,
Here.
Don DeZellem,
Here.
George Jones,
Here.
Ken Kennedy,
Here.
Larry Larson,
Here.
Don Wayne, absent, Cole Middleton.
Here.
And also in attendance, we have City Council Member Catherine Nakai and Board of Adjustment Member Valerie Lundy.
For the record, Ken Hartsfield, I'm here.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Just the chair, no biggie.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, tonight on our agenda, we have a work session to do the code review project, and yes, Karen, let you get us started.
Sure. Just recap, I tried to be pretty thorough in the message that went out to everybody. But you may recall, it's been a long while since we looked at the original draft of the restructured chapter 2. And we only got about 9 pages into that, where we went through the general language up front and then through, I think, the suburban residential zone district. And partly because of time, and then recognizing the repetitive nature of that particular chapter, opted to tell staff, go back, incorporate these changes, and then bring it back to us at a later point. And then we also looked at it in more depth in terms of just the overall structure and what does this really need to look like to be more functional for us at a staff level and then for the general public. So that's what we brought back to you, is we incorporated all of your changes that you had suggested in that first little bit of touching our toe into this chapter. So I'm trusting that Jen and her associate Claire dove in and applied that throughout. And then in the restructuring, you'll see that the zone districts have been grouped together, and they should mirror what's in the use table in, I think it's chapter 4, in terms of the order of appearance. So all the residential districts are together. And at the start of that residential section, you see the common language that showed up in every single individual residential zone. Like look at the use table for conditional uses, look at the use table for permitted uses. So that's at the start of the residential section. And then it breaks down into each of the individual residential zones, where it gives you the intent or purpose, and then the bulk requirements for that zone, heights, setbacks, those types of things, limitations on accessory structures. And then there's a section that's not always used, and I can't remember what we called it. I think it was additional standards. Yeah. So that was used in some districts, but not all of them, because not all districts had additional standards. So you see it as a placeholder with the word reserved. So then I think we look at the commercial zone districts. And I can't remember what we have them called at the moment. The other thing that's clearly rounded up is the overlay districts. Because right now, I think about the only one that really shows up in the code, with the other zone districts, is the Woodland Station overlay. Then there's 2 overlays that relate to signage, specifically electronic message displays, and then a special downtown area, which provides other parameters associated with signage in that area. And then we did insert a new one, and it says floodplain overlay district. It is really a mechanism to say, hey, look at the floodplain maps, because there are floodplain maps the city has adopted that impact how a parcel can develop or provide additional requirements that you need to do if you are developing that particular parcel. So it's just a way to kind of tie that together a little bit. So that's what we delivered to you all, gave you the red line copy, which I'm sure made my head hurt looking at it. in terms of, oh my God, to try and add edits into that. It seemed a bit cumbersome, but I wanted to make sure you guys had that so you could see from the transparency standpoint that everything has been accounted for. And then the very clean copy that we put into Conveyo for you guys to comment on, because that seemed like that would be a little easier to insert any comments or concerns. So that's where we are with what we delivered to everybody to take a look at. With that, I guess I'll turn it over to Jen and we'll unveil Conveyo and I guess dive into the chapter. Unless you got
Awesome.
me initially here.
Sorry, I think someone else was trying to say something right when I jumped in.
Well, I asked if anybody, unless somebody had questions for me, and then there's crickets, so I'm taking that as a good sign.
Just a moment. CJ, do we have any public participants online?
We have one attendee, just the name Linda.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Hello, Linda.
Hello, yeah, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Go ahead, Jen.
All right. It's good to see you all. Happy New Year. I think we didn't see each other since before all of the holidays, so I hope everybody had a good time. And we can dive into the comments. There are 100, I think there were 106 comments. Let me scroll down here. Yep, 106 comments. So we'll just cruise through them kind of one by one like we've done before. And these first few are from Larry. So Larry, I don't know if you wanted to expand upon them at all, but you had a suggestion for inserting a purpose and intent statement for the overall chapter, I believe.
Yeah, I believe that's important for each and every chapter that we deal in the code. Tell what we're trying to accomplish and what's our intent and purpose. So I crafted a proposed intent statement. You can read it up there. The primary purpose and intent of this chapter is to designate specified zoning districts to applicable to all land and property located within the city, as well as establishing the official zoning map of the city of Woodland Park, standards for the interpretation of the zoning map, and specified provisions and standards applicable to each zoning district.
Just a question, don't we have a general purpose statement at the beginning in chapter 1? Are we going to repeat this at the beginning of every chapter?
Yeah, that was my intent, that every chapter have a purpose and intent.
Okay, but when the purpose intent is simply to, everything is in it, we mean it just to be applicable.
Right.
I guess it can just seem unnecessary.
Well, and if I can interject, I know we've looked at that in some of the other chapters, and that especially some of them have had additional sections within a chapter. So I appreciate what you two are talking about in terms of trying to find that balance between making sure it's clear what we're trying to accomplish versus overly duplicative language. So I don't know where that balance is yet, because I think it does depend. That not everyone potentially needs a purpose statement, but others right now don't have one and probably do. So for whatever that's worth, for the purpose of the conversation.
There are other chapters already that have purpose and intent statements at the beginning.
Yeah, I would just comment that we should stay consistent through how the rest of the code is written across the other chapters. If there's purpose statements in other chapters, then I believe that they should be added here as well.
Well, for each one of these, in each of those districts, the first paragraph in each of the discussions on each of the districts has a purpose.
Yes.
So I don't know if on the established districts you need a purpose, but each one of the individual districts have a purpose in the document now.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to weigh in. The general provisions chapter does have a purpose statement, but that makes sense because that's the purpose of the entire code. The only other one right now that appears to have an intent and purpose is the development standards.
Chapter 3.
Yeah, the use standards do not have an intent and purpose at the beginning. This one doesn't. Definitions don't. And I'm looking to see our last two here.
I've asked that this purpose and intent statement be included with the ones that you just mentioned.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess the question is everyone okay with that? I mean, we often see that in codes, so I think it's a solid recommendation if everyone is okay with that.
I would say if it's a general practice, then I would second Larry's request.
No objections and
I have
Move
no
on.
objection.
no.
No
Yeah.
objection.
All right. I'm gonna. All right, then the next comment is insert at the beginning of this chapter. Oh, we already kind of went over that, the purpose and intent. Question 2, will short-term rentals be addressed now with the UDC update or standalone?
The ordinance that was passed by the voters, that's getting incorporated into the current set of regulations. So it will show up in the document we are using now. And then we will be taking that exact language, because by law it cannot be changed for 2 years. And I'll be working with Jen to get it inserted into the appropriate place within the new draft that we've been working on. So it will show up. The language will not change since that was very specific and approved by the voters. The section numbers, obviously our numbering our scheme does adjust. So that's what will change, but otherwise it will show up here.
Okay, I did notice that there were some, what I thought were errors within the ordinance and some typos. Yeah, but we take it as the voters approved it. And the next crack we get is in 2 years.
And I'm not sure with regard to Scrivener errors, typos, that kind of thing. I'm not sure what latitude there is. That's where I'm deferring to the city attorney. I've never been down this road before.
As long as it's just typos and everything, and it doesn't change the actual language, it's fine. They'll fix it, Larry.
Okay,
Yeah, exactly. Defer to the attorneys.
there's probably a whole lot more I'd like to change. But I understand. Okay, thanks, Karen.
Sure.
All right, then our next question was. Okay, and this carries throughout the whole document as well. So under the purpose and intent statement for each zone district, ensure that the words zone district is utilized instead of the words used such as areas, designated areas, land use designation, designated land use category. Again, I think this is a solid recommendation. We did not tinker with your current purpose statements. So I saw a lot of the comments in here were adjustments to that. And I think they're solid recommendations. So we'll just have to walk through them one at a time. But does anyone have any issues with just consistent language?
Say consistent language. When we do them, we'll see they need parallel structure to them. Some of the comments I
Right.
had, even if it said zone district, from one to the next, the wording changes, migrates for no apparent reason.
We
And
feel that pain daily.
Migration.
Well, the wording, the wording migration, yeah, that's.
I probably have maybe 75% of my comments are dealing with that particular issue. And when it comes to it, I'll just say, this is a zone district on land.
Okay,
And I tried to craft them for they were consistent from one district to the next. I saw that too.
all right. Actually, that's number 3. I'm just trying to keep these in order. Sorry, guys. 2 and then 3. Okay. Number 4 on the general list is, should the outside storage and screening provisions be referenced under 2.3.01 commercial industrial districts general provisions? Can you just expand upon that, Larry? Because I know we have some outside storage and screening provisions with the use standards. Do we need to reference those, and maybe we kind of expand upon it, but we may need to hold on this comment until we get down to that section and kind of resurrect this question.
Well, the reason I put it in this place is because we spent a lot of time talking about outside storage in the use regulations. And we related those to the various uses. And in this section, we're talking about various zoning districts, and there were also various provisions with landscaping, parking, so on and so forth. And I thought maybe it'd be worthy to carry those over.
I don't have an answer for that this evening. It's a great point. And I think I would like to see how the rest of this finished shaking out in terms
Okay.
of where things land. But to your point, since we were struggling a little bit with like, where do we add that layer of information? This may or may not be the appropriate place. So it's certainly worth contemplating.
This is intended just to kind of identify what I thought were the major issues that we should address. And I did talk about each and every one of those areas too.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll just hold that.
Okay. And then recommend that the PUD and MHP sections be included in their entirety in this chapter to provide clarity to the code and to the code user.
Aren't they in it except for the administrative provisions generally now? Looked like that was the intent. Maybe was there something missed?
I think
Almost. There, in mobile section, you go page after page and there's PUDs, but they don't have the provisions where you have, how you apply for a PUD, which should make sense because that's in the
Correct.
administrative. Are there other stuff that's substantive provisions that are missing?
When I went through each of those, the mobile home district naturally fell all the way through in its entirety.
Yeah.
The PUDs kind of split up. And I was thinking for a person that was desiring to zone their property PUD.
I think I had a couple comments or a couple of sections there, or paragraphs that I thought might have been missed on the PUD, but it looked like the intent was to put it all in here.
Yeah,
So I mean, I agree, they should be here.
yeah, and
Let's
one
just check
place.
that they are.
Yeah, that's my motive is to keep them all in one place. I think it'd be easier for a user, somebody reading the code, to understand the PUD section if it's all complete.
Let me clarify that. I would agree with that all the standards need to be in one place. But that the application procedures could be in the other place is how we've divided that up. So are there additional PUD standards, just standards, not application procedures that you are aware of that are somewhere else? And are they in
No.
the use chapter or?
When you get to my comments, I think there's some I've forgotten what they are, but I think I had some.
Okay. Okay. Well,
But-
let's
Well,
let's
and you
keep that in. Oh, go ahead,
Yeah.
Karen.
As I say, you all may recall that we recognize the administration chapter is needs a lot of work. There's a reason we haven't been diving into that one. That's one that you will get a fresh version of that's been more heavily edited and cleaned up before you guys get a crack at it. But your comment is helpful in terms of where does this need to be. And I must be more tired than I realize that I obviously can't make decisions this evening, but I'm taking in everything you say for whatever that's worth. I said, we'll definitely take a look at that. And I agree with Jen that it is kind of that fine line in terms of like, where are the standards, where are the processes, so that you've got a pretty consistent mindset or thought philosophy around how you're doing things, that it makes it easier to then utilize the regulations. It's when you've got one mindset over here and then this set's got a different mindset, and that's part of what makes working with a code challenging. And our code right now has got 30 years worth of 30 different minds probably.
Again, I thought it'd be easier for a user to understand if it was all in one place. That's what I
Yeah.
was thinking.
Yeah, no, I hear
I
you.
like your idea of taking a look at it.
Yeah.
All right. While you guys were talking, I was listening as well, but also pulling up something on the other screen to see if I could identify a piece. Okay. Then moving on, we have table 2.01, 2.01-1, and I have done extensive research on this. That we're not including an open space district in your current code. I couldn't find an open space district either. So is that something new that's been added?
I'm not aware of us having one.
No.
Yeah, here's your zone districts currently. There's no open space in there.
In fact, the grouping of the last few doesn't make a lot of sense. There's 4 residential, which are grouped together, which makes sense. There's commercial, industrial, which are grouped together, makes sense. Having then something called open space, which we don't use the term just so you can put ag. And then having miscellaneous, seems like miscellaneous ought to include ag, public and semi-public, and planned development, all is miscellaneous.
I'm comfortable with that.
Can you repeat that really quickly? I just did not track it 100%. So we would have,
Let's say we get rid of the category of zone districts, open space, because there isn't really any. Instead, just have miscellaneous expanded to include ag as well as public, semi-public, and PUD.
okay, so basically what Larry has here,
Yep.
minus the open space, because
Well,
we don't have that district.
again, we'll be talking about that because open space shows up as a proposed zoning district later on.
We're making up a new zone district? I don't think
Yes,
so.
yes.
I don't think so.
I don't
Doesn't
know,
sound like a recodification, but I'm not sure.
I don't know where the open space district is located in our current code.
You don't have one that I could find.
Yeah, it doesn't exist,
Exactly.
but it does show up in our proposal.
We used it as a category, residential zones, commercial industrial zones. Then there was an open space zone category with the only zone district
Oh,
being
that's right,
ag.
that's right, you're right.
So, and then there's the miscellaneous. So per Lee's comment, get rid of the open space category,
Right.
that ag district into the miscellaneous. So that probably does make the most sense at this juncture.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you for clarifying, and I'm glad I looked down here to see what we were talking about. Okay, so open space changes it's the title.
Yeah, the categorization.
Yep. Okay, that makes sense. Perfect. Okay, then the rest of the districts are fine. So it was just that piece that we were kept picking up on, right, Larry?
yes.
Okay, perfect. Number 4. Larry, can you explain your comment? Sorry.
Yeah, well, we have a new overlay district called floodplain overlay, and I just wanted to make the statement that I thought that was a great idea, that it's okay.
Okay. I wasn't sure I understood the new parentheses and the okay, but the question mark, I wasn't sure if you were questioning it or how that was. So cool. Number 5 takes us to the top of the next page, under all of the different descriptions of boundaries. Add the following at the beginning of this section: with the exception of the overlay district's boundaries, with the exception of the overlay district boundaries, the district boundaries are shown on the official zoning map. that makes sense. Is everyone in agreement there?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and Jen, since this is like really new, we may need to revisit this a little bit to make it more of a reference to those zoning maps, since it's not a true overlay district. So this is kind of halfway there from a planning perspective, but it was a way to try and incorporate that somehow, but so it's not thoroughly vetted.
I have worked with a lot of zoning regulations that kind of take the zoning map and identify it as part of the ordinance. And it's, it's identified that way.
You mean the flood maps?
No, not the flood map, no, the zoning map. Or I thought we moved on from the flood map.
We're talking about aren't we talking about the flood map?
The overlay.
We finished that one, Karen, that
Okay.
everyone was okay with that. We're
Okay,
on.
well,
to-
I've got a separate conversation in the room that distracted me
Okay.
back to the flood map.
No
Because it's about
worries.
the point. So, I want to make sure that we vet things, so
Yeah,
I apologize that.
no, we
took a
were
shift.
trying to whisper, because the floodplain hazard study isn't really a district. That was, we were trying to see whether we should say anything about that when we were whispering. Sorry. So
No
I don't,
whispering in the
I'm not
room.
saying it's
Just
clearly
kidding.
in there, but it's not a district. That's
It's
all.
not a district, but it's part of the overall provisions for zoning districts when we talk about how to identify and interpret the boundaries. And one of the things that we include is the zoning map.
Jen, can you scroll back so I can see where this is being inserted? Is it?
It's at the very bottom of the table, Lee.
No,
Is
I see, oh, no, I'm talking about the language where we called at the top that we just inserted.
Oh, I don't know where she is on that one, so.
Did that go before the list table?
I'm sorry, what?
It goes right here. We'll come back to that. Let's stick to the floodplain conversation here for a second, and then we'll come back to that language I was just talking about. I jumped ahead. I didn't realize we were still talking about floodplain.
Oh, well,
We
yeah,
went
that was
back
our
to it.
fault, or my fault, but no, that was just because over in here, it says overlay districts, and then there's the list of 4. What the floodplain hazard study, and then over on the next page, it's called a floodplain overlay district. I don't think we have one of those. It's not a district.
Exactly.
Okay,
Well, and the reason, when you raised that, I was, good point. I was trying to see what was the text we just inserted at the beginning of the chapter before the table, which proceeds to say the district. I'm just trying to read, does that make any sense?
okay.
I was just gonna look back in your code too. It's Title 20 is your flood damage prevention regulations. So typically. What?
Nothing.
Okay, typically, those would apply in a floodplain overlay. So, it could be a floodplain hazard area. Where did you guys where did the term floodplain hazard study come from, Larry? Was that from?
It's actually from the code. Title 20.
Okay, maybe within here,
It's
general
gonna be,
provisions,
yeah,
provisions for flood
There-
hazard reduction.
No, you go up where it says lands to which this regulation applies.
Areas of special flood hazards within the jurisdiction of the city. Okay, I see what you're saying.
That one and the next one, 20. 10 and 20. And then it talks about the flood study, flood insurance study, maps. So that would be the basis for the overlay, I assume,
yes.
whatever the
Yes,
maps would say, and that's where it's referenced.
Okay,
okay, that helps me. Thank you.
we'll work on this part.
Yep, we can work on the name of that. All right, are we good to move on to the next one?
I'm sorry, could you just go back to the first page?
Yep, absolutely.
And you see. I'm just trying to read it makes sense. The city is divided into the following districts and with some additional prefatory language that Larry suggested.
Yes,
So that all makes sense when we don't have floodplain districts. It's not a big deal.
It's proposed to be an overlay district.
I guess it's all right. I was just trying to read what it said.
I see where you're going with that. As we incorporate this language, we can keep that in mind. It is to designate specific zone districts applicable to all land and property, as well as establishing the official zoning map. I think this is okay.
I think part of the problem is too, that when we're looking at this and the designation on the left-hand side of the screen as a number 001, and that relates to the second item on there. So it kind of got kind of confused from what I originally wrote. Number 2 was just to be a summary of the major issues. Number 1 was
Right.
just, okay. Number
Adding a
1.
purpose statement here.
Purpose
Yep.
statement. Okay.
No, that makes sense. I think it tracks.
Yeah.
Okay, so then going back to this comment number 5, there may be another way around this. Is everyone okay with the language adding to this, with the exception of the overlay district boundaries? The district boundaries are shown on the official zoning map. Another way around this would be to say the base zone district boundaries are all shown on the official zoning map. It's kind of saying the same thing 2 different ways.
Yeah. And you're right, Jen. I mean, the zoning map just shows the base zones.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more
So-
consistent to the point to do the second statement that you mentioned.
I find the first wording a little bit clumsy to put that in the front of what you're trying to say, to state your exception first. I'd rather have it just say the base districts are shown on the zoning map.
That works.
Let's do
Okay,
this one.
okay, we have consensus there.
I think so.
All right. 6, we have a couple numbers that are overlapping themselves, but I think 6 is this one up here. Delete this clause 2.01.02 as adding no useful content to defining boundaries of the districts. So it says the provisions of this chapter shall apply within the corporate limits of the city as now or hereafter fixed.
It just struck me, that's one of the dumber provisions to define boundaries. It's already, we can go find it. It's already said earlier, that our zoning rules apply within the city. Doesn't help
Yep.
shape the, so just, we can save a little ink, get rid of it.
Everyone okay with that?
Yep.
Yes,
Okay. All right, 7, yep, looks like same comment. Then 8 is, I believe, down here at the bottom, right? As discussed during previous review of this text, the purpose of the references to the stated clauses is unclear, as it is the current ordinance which references the regulations applicable to the SR zone. Although not clearly necessary, one might revise to read any change in the regulations or permitted uses applicable to a zone shall not change any existing district boundaries. Or better, to delete the paragraph. Did you guys get all that?
I like the last sentence that Lee wrote up there.
Delete the paragraph part's the best part.
Is everyone okay with that?
Yep.
All right, were those thumbs ups I saw, ladies?
But yeah, but we're good.
Okay.
It's sort of like a jigsaw puzzle.
Mhm.
Are we
That's funny.
removing the whole second, the whole section?
Say again?
Are we removing the whole section?
You're right. 2.01.08 was my proposal to get rid of it.
Okay, just want to know.
I'll write that in for clarification. Check, let's see, where is this one? 9. Oh, doesn't matter anymore. We're removing it. Delete this clause. Okay, we're good. Those were easy. Okay. 11 is back up here under the zoning map. The official zoning map of, the suggestion is to add language that says the official zoning map of the city shall be on file and available at the city planning department. It shall be the responsibility of the department to ensure that the zone map is current and up to date at all times. I will say language similar to that is in a lot of other codes, just where the zoning map lives. So I think that's a sound recommendation. Any thoughts on that one?
No objections.
Okay. Now we're down to the next page. At the bottom of the page, insert a new paragraph similar to the new 2.03.01.04 and state it's applicable as being to MFS and MFU districts. Let me just track here. 2.03.01. Okay, 2.03.01.04 talks about sidewalk construction. Is that the right reference? Lee, looks like this was your comment.
What's the original section where the comment
Yeah.
appears, Jen?
Yeah, so okay, let's put
Well,
it.
I mean, in this draft, where does this bubble comment show up?
Yeah, I'll go back there. So sidewalk construction required.
Oh,
Okay, now we'll go back up.
Sidewalk construction for multifamily that may not have been listed there. I think that's, I think.
That's right.
So I had to remember.
Okay,
Okay, because we've got. Okay, uses, clustered, parking, fencing. So you're saying just add that sidewalk provision in here as well. Okay,
It should be in the general section on residential, if it says it's just for multifamily, or it's an addition to put twice in, once for multifamily suburban and once for multifamily urban. So you can do it either way.
I see what you're saying. Okay, we can either put it here in the additional standards or just put it in one place as applicable to those two zone districts.
well, for consistency and the consistency of the thought process is the general stuff at the beginning of the residential section applies to all residential zones.
Right.
That sidewalk provision, I do not think applies to the single family
So
zones.
it can be added as in the additional reserve space in both multifamily zone districts.
Correct.
That's fine.
Okay,
As, I'm not sure where it is here, as to applicability provision. This occurs in each of the general ones. You scroll back to the beginning of 2.02. No, I'm sorry, a little further. Sorry, no, the resident, yeah, that's resident. It starts under uses. For all districts, building and structures and land, go look at the table. It doesn't seem like you want to say that in residential. You want to say for residential districts, we'll look at the table. And in commercial, you'll say for commercial districts, look at the table.
Oh, yeah, I
As-
see what you're saying.
You don't want to put in the residential provision, something that applies to everything.
Right.
So it's for all residential districts.
gotcha. Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna
Okay.
find it throughout. So we have to be careful what we're doing.
Okay, so we've moved on. That's comment 14. Or 13. Which 14 is about the same, right? Just specifically talking about residential districts in here. I get that. Is that good for everybody?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, and then 15 is refer to the table consistently. Okay. That's fair assessment. We can make sure that is consistent. Let's see here, 16. Yes, so the comment is, shouldn't this be allowed uses or permitted uses, not just uses? I would agree. And one question I have for all of you is, do you want to just combine all of the uses into one? Because the permitted, conditional, they're all in that same table. So we could even condense this further down to just say uses are all in section X with table X.
I'll say uses and conditional uses. Or
So
allowed.
maybe allowed and,
Yeah, allowed uses and conditional uses.
okay,
As long as we're careful, the word allowed is used, because sometimes it's permitted in something else, so be careful.
Yeah, further down we go.
Okay, I think I made a comment. I think it's in every section.
okay.
They just state the tables.
Just for my
Okay, it looks
clarification,
like,
is mobile home park considered residential?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where do we define which zones are residential?
We did that just a few minutes ago. When we went through the table.
They're under 2.02. Or maybe we
Okay,
should
excuse
just
me.
make that explicitly.
I have a suggestion for that, because I was thinking the same thing when I opened this evening. One thing we could do is add another subheader under base zone districts and categorize these. Another option, and maybe additionally to that, would be at the beginning here, we say, just list the residential uses or an additional quick little table that just lists which uses are in this particular section 2.02. I know
would
it sounds repetitive, but
I would prefer the subheader in the initial table.
Yeah, in
Okay.
2.101 there.
I agree, it should be in the original table. At the start.
Okay. So add some subheaders in here that categorize that, so it's easier to understand moving forward.
Well, I think just instead of having base zone districts, you just break it up into residential and non-residential.
There's a way to work it in there, because we do need that distinction between a base and overlay also.
Okay.
Overlay's a little bit
Yeah.
different, but we'll work on the design of what that looks like. That's really more a graphics issue.
And again, I would answer you Ken's question, that if you, in the table, you would have your residential districts under one subhead. Residential districts,
Needs to be defined somewhere.
yeah, in the table would be best. It'd be easier to read.
Okay,
And,
I like
and
that.
And Jen, if you go in your note section, and go further up. Back to about number. I'll tell you when to stop. I'm going. Right there, that's
Mhm.
my attempt to categorize.
Right.
Base zones are residential, commercial, industrial, and miscellaneous. And then you got the overlay districts.
Yep, I think you're spot on there,
Except there is no open space.
Exactly.
except for no open space.
And we
We're gonna
already
say
crossed that
almost
off.
spot on. Here, would this make you feel better? Oh, how do we cross that out? I probably have to do something special to cross that out.
Just make a note.
If you hit Control Dash. It should.
There we go. All right. Correct spelling of therefore when used as a preposition, we can do
That
that.
wasn't your typo, Jen. That's in the existing ordinance. It's
Oh,
misspelled.
okay. Well, there were a couple things that you guys caught that are in your existing ordinance that I have no idea where they came from. And we'll get to one here soon.
Would you please move the right screen to number 17 for see where that's going?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Sorry about
Thank
that.
you. Thank you.
So it's in conditional
Screen.
uses. All right. 18, why did this get added here? It just seems like a point to another section. There's a few of these that point to other sections, and they're somewhat carryovers from your current code.
What,
It just seemed like it was. It did, and likely it's in a few places where that's necessary, but only because it's not defining where it is.
It's certainly very important to recognize this particular provision in all residential districts. In fact, I think that's the only place they are references residential districts.
so
It's in the table.
So part of what's going on with this land use intensity ratios is right now it's in not the place you want it in the code. Since it applies to, if it's the provision I'm thinking of, it applies to what percentage of your lot gets covered when you're putting houses and structures on it. Now, you would think that would show up in your zoning districts or your Title 18, where you deal with development of individual lots. That actually shows up in the subdivision regulations. So in terms of trying to like restructure all this, it's at least called out better in terms of this applies. But it may not be in the right place, and I agree with you guys, it may need to actually show up here in its entirety rather than the other section. We'll do a double check on that.
And the other one that was mine that. The other one. Forget it. The other one that was mine, was the next one, I think it really should have said pointing, but once you said it, put it in there, it would let me go back and fix my typo. So, but that's already covered with the other one.
And I was muted. Sorry, guys. I do see that. Thank you. I do have this, just so you guys can see that land use intensity ratios is here. And I agree, it might live better somewhere else. But just so everyone has a little frame of reference on that last conversation. All right. So 18, I can't find, oh, here's our, no, we already talked about 18. And then 18 again. Okay. Whoo. I thought I was seeing doubles there. 19.
Okay, this
This
is again,
is-
the
yeah.
first good example of, we have something called areas when we were talking about districts. And I recommended that, at the beginning of the section, this zoning district is intended to accommodate detached single-family residence at a low density.
Does anyone have? Yeah, go ahead.
May use some rewording otherwise to start and say these areas are located primarily on the periphery. I can't see it, read it on the block. It's, some of them are, some of them aren't in the periphery. Is it? I mean, they are where they are. Does that add an understanding of its purpose to say they're on the periphery?
Take it out.
It just seems, it's the word, I'm wondering why it's there like that.
This is just, I don't know if you put, oh, you did put Lewis in there. Okay, sorry. His comment on there, because he couldn't be here, so he wanted to make sure that it was addressed to, because it doesn't specifically say over there, single family.
Yeah, the whole thing actually doesn't add a lot of thought. It provides for pedestrian friendly walkways. Well, not really. If that's the area, those sidewalks. What we mean to say is relatively larger lots than some other places for single family dwellings.
Yes.
That's what we mean to say.
Well, and this is where we walk that fine line between just restructuring things versus does this language serve us? You know, is this a larger potential problem with the code?
Does it
Because
say specific, does it somewhere say specifically that this is single family dwellings? I mean, of course it is, but does it say this? Maybe it
Still.
does.
Dwellings or residences? Or both?
I'm sorry, it's hard to see. I can only look at what the page Jen shows at a time, so it's hard to.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring over, here's the red line so you can see that it's split on
Oh.
2 pages, but there was language in here. We removed this language only because it was talking about density that we've moved down to the table, but it did end up missing out on that single family housing in the SR district is limited to.
And even that gets closer, but even that's not a very good sense. Single family housing,
Right.
yes, district is limited to. Does that mean non-single family housing is not limited to? I mean,
Maybe we need to continue to use the word primarily.
it ought to say directly, this zoning district is for single family housing with larger lot sizes than required that are allowed in the urban single SFU. Isn't that?
And that's what I tried to say when you look over my comment. The zoning is intended to accommodate detached, single-family residents at a low density. Higher lots.
Since the density number is in the table, you could just take out those last ones because density is in the table in the 5th page. But it would be specifically saying single family.
Yeah, by the way, the problem gets worse as far as the wording of this, when you get to the next zoning district talking about. When you start, I'm sorry, the 3rd one, multifamily. Then we've seen the problem when it says, this district is intended to accommodate attached dwelling. Attached buildings, well, intended to accommodate, that didn't accomplish the objective a couple of years ago, the way it was changed. To, instead of fixing that, it was added a provision saying all multifamily uses are conditional. Which I think our planning department hates.
which part?
But it seemed like a simple statement of worry about whether to call it purpose or intent. This zoning district is for single family houses. And say something about the lots or relative size or something like that, but anything beyond that is interesting. But less necessary. But the first part needs to be stated clearly.
So do you guys want to wordsmith that right now a little bit more, or just leave us with some these general thoughts and we'll develop that?
I mean,
Because I like what Larry has,
Just
the
did.
beginning part. Yeah.
If you go down to Lou's thing, which is 21, he had this suggestion of referencing the definition of the Colorado code for single family, so you guys don't find yourself at crossways with the state at some point.
Larry's wordings are as long as we don't say it's intended to accommodate.
Well, yeah, I was just addressing the
This
late.
zoning district is for detached single family residences of low density.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I saw Lou's email before and forwarded it to Jen. And I appreciate the caution around, you know, what we have for definitions versus how the state defines some things. But part of what we say within our regulation is, you know, the definitions, you know, here or apply to this chapter. So this is where you look first for definitions. And then I've had other codes that would also reference, okay, you look here first, this is your second choice, and then this is your third choice for things that are not otherwise defined. So let's discuss. You did it. You got witnesses.
And I think it's also important in that section that you distinguish between the two districts. You got suburban, you got urban residential. And somehow make a distinction between, maybe it's just a higher density than the previous district, like I said before.
Yeah, from what I can tell, looking at suburban versus urban residential districts, it really is a matter of density.
It is.
More than anything else between those
Yep.
two.
And the urban residential does say that.
When we get to it, you'll see it. Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so I think we've come up with that, and is everyone satisfied with the discussion on the definition of single family? That as I heard it, we're leaving the definition in the code. We can reference the state. Is that correct?
No.
Or are we?
I think where we were was just acknowledging that the definitions we set out in the code are the ones that apply to the code.
Right.
That's really where that is.
Okay, all right. Item 20.
I saw it in these tables, 20 feet, and then I saw it somewhere else in another version at 25. It's just a question, because I saw it two ways.
Which thing?
The 20 or 25 feet in the height for the
Building
accessory.
height.
Okay,
I-
I don't know if it may vary between zone district.
No, it was in this district.
District,
and It
okay.
was some places it was 20, some places it was 25
Okay.
in the other text. So
I think the existing code says 20.
I will tell you momentarily.
the table in this thing says 25. But it says 20. I'd have to go back and find where is it. There is a conflict in there.
The setbacks there.
For building height.
It's
Building
specific.
height.
Up there.
Hang on.
Yeah, just for the height. for the
25.
Right, and in the table it says 20. The new table says 20.
Yep. Okay, we'll get that changed.
I don't know which one's the right one.
It's 20
So-
everywhere, probably
so-
it's 20 everywhere else in these.
Yeah,
So-
it is. It is.
So
20.
I'm looking at the current code in the suburban residential zone district. Section 18.12.030 heights. And it says any main building hereafter erected, structurally altered, shall not exceed 30 feet in height. And no accessory building shall exceed 20 feet in height.
Right. And in the table version that we had in this thing, it says 25. That it was just a question.
Oh, and
What
here
you're
it's-
looking at there, Valerie, is wrong.
This one's wrong.
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was consistent. That's
and
what.
the current draft is 20.
Right.
So we're,
Alright.
thank you for double checking, so that's good, the 20 that we've got here.
Okay.
Okay, so we're good.
Yeah, thanks for catching that.
21 goes up to the top.
All right. Yeah, 21, we did talk about this similar. Larry, did you put this in twice?
Nope, this is for the next zoning.
The next
district.
one? Oh,
Yep.
interesting.
You
It jumped
skipped,
over.
you skipped, you were ready to go to 22.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. I can't, my eyes are just like crossing over with these numbers. Thank you. It's been a long day. Okay. 22, revise the first sentence to read. So similar to the last one. Do you guys want me to bring over the redlined version again?
Again, this is the same one. I recommend that this zoning district is intended to accommodate detached single-family residence at a medium density higher than the SR district density.
I would strongly encourage us not to use the word as intended to accommodate.
Well, I saw that in several, and I
We've
thought,
seen it several places and we saw it, it doesn't work, it doesn't mean anything, we saw how from a couple of years ago, it didn't work.
What you recommend-
It was interpreted, rightfully or wrongfully, to be suggestive but not directive.
so you said instead of using the words intended to accommodate, you say for.
Is for.
Okay, I can live with that.
Problem I see is that there are other uses on the use table which are conditional or so there are other uses allowed in that district.
No, but this isn't a use, this is a
The
this
district,
is a structure. Different than a use. Clarify, I'm sure what you mean.
Okay. I just know there are some conditional uses on the use table for urban residential, public utility facilities. They're permitted conditional. So that is allowed in that district, and we're saying it's single family or only. Is
But
that
it
a
is-
conflict?
Yeah.
The definition, while general is correct, it doesn't allow for the conditional uses that are allowed by our use table.
Can we just point to the use table?
And so when we have the intent, it gives you the general idea. But when you say it is for single family residence, it excludes the other uses that are permitted in the use table.
well, then I would say, let's
Are there other
introduce the
use-
word primary,
uses?
primarily. This district is
Exclusive of-
primarily for single family detached.
Yeah, and
Attached.
that's part of where we're kind of, I think, getting a little lost in terms of what do I point to in terms of what can you do here? And so the purpose statement for each of the zone districts was really kind of that almost a vision. Hey, this is what we think we want to see in this zone district, or this is what we want to see in this zone district. And then the table is where you get into more specificity around what can and cannot actually be cited within the zone district. And then there are some things like you gentlemen were just talking about around what was it, infrastructure, the substations or whatever you just
I
referenced.
just picked one.
Yeah, and that's actually infrastructure that you need to support the uses otherwise within the zone district. So those are always a little awkward when you've got that kind of a use.
That's why I like the word intent to express what we're trying to do in this district, but not saying that it is single family residence, because there are other uses.
But saying it's for single family residence is stating your intent, but
Can you leave what Larry has suggested or Leah suggested and put unless otherwise defined in the use table? I mean, wouldn't that?
No, I
Yeah.
like it. I mean, that does it.
What
Yes.
about something like the zone district is either primarily for or intended for detached single-family residences and associated uses or something like that?
I
That's
like
very
Catherine's
good.
approach better.
Yeah.
It's for single family
Catherine.
use except as otherwise explicitly stated.
Again, I like what Jen just said, use the word primary, primarily intended for.
Primarily is it's just opening the door. If you covered, if you already, we only
Okay.
intend to have other uses to the extent we've listed other uses.
So at the end of the day, when somebody comes in and says, I want to do X in this zone district, we look at the use table in terms of whether or not that use can happen in that zone district. If it's a use that is not listed, that's where you get into the weird spot of you do this whole other application to basically ask to amend the code to have a line inserted in the table. And then that's where this conversation would otherwise happen in terms of, is that use appropriate in that zone district? But for the purposes now, and how many of those let's add a use to the table conversations have you guys had over the course of your career as planning commissioners? Probably not a lot. So it's really that table that's gonna govern whether or not you can set something there and not the purpose statement with regard to what happens broadly within the zone district.
I like Catherine's amendment.
I do.
Well, all the amendment does is point out very explicitly that the use table governs. I mean, that's really all it does. It's not you're not adding something new.
Yeah, you could infer it without it, but it addresses the concern and it.
So then the question is that addressed in that other language at the start of the residential section where it said, go see the table? Just asking.
No, I think it conflicts,
Because at
By
the start of the
clarifying-
section, it says, go see the table.
but then it says it's only single family residents here.
No, it's
It
probably
doesn't say go
sufficient,
see the
but,
table.
but everyone seems to agree to have the express reference is desirable. It just eliminates.
So what I think we're all agreeing is that the intent of the urban residential zoning district is to provide for detached, single-family residents
Residences.
at a higher density than the
Then yes, sir.
suburban.
Yes,
That's the intent of that district.
there's some discussion whether the word intent should be there.
Well, that's,
Yeah, I
Can I-
think the,
can I
I
just
think the
get the
intent is
backstory of,
valuable
like,
if you have
what
to
the issue
consider
is?
an alternate use, you know, you look at, well, what was the intent? Is that consistent with the intent? I think it's not binding, but I think it's useful. To say what the intent is.
Well, you're, rather than throwing in the word intent, saying this zoning district is for detached, single-family houses at a higher density than provided in the SR.
And then with Catherine's addition,
Yeah, that just
Condition.
strikes me as exclusive rather than.
Except
As-
as expanded by
Or-
the use table.
see the use table for acceptable uses or something like that.
I think I'm confused about what the argument is if we have a use table.
We do have a use table.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't understand what
So-
the.
So the point I was trying to get at.
Agrees that the
sorry.
use table is sufficient by itself, but because there seems to be concerns about it, the language Catherine suggested would seem to eliminate those concerns.
The point I was trying to get at is the use table sounds like, you know, it's essentially black and white, but someone can request a change to the use table. So if that happens, then what do we go by? And I would argue then the next thing we would use as guidance is the stated intent. So someone wants to have an addition to the use table, we say, well, does that consistent with the intent of that zone? So that's what I think it was useful. I think it would be useful for potential changes, potential, additions, subtractions, et cetera.
Intent is clearly stated by saying this district is for detached, single-family dwellings at a higher density.
I think the
intent
problem.
of this is for that. This suggests some other kind of softening or something else too.
If you add a word like intent, it's like asking for a challenge.
Exactly.
It
Why don't-
just
It
is.
says you don't really mean what you said. It sort of means.
It is.
Maybe not.
And I mean, I think the use table and the just straight up words makes the most sense.
I guess I don't understand what the city's concerned about. Are we worried about someone coming and building 25 helipads and?
Anything's possible here, trust me.
Okay. Then I don't see an issue with putting the intent. It leaves flexibility and
So what I'm hearing is some people say the intent of this is, and some people saying this is for.
yeah,
And so I have no issue with saying this is for. I'm on that. This is for detached, medium density, single family dwellings. And then the use table reference, that works for me. And I think it's going to accomplish the same thing, but it leaves a little less ambiguity in that zones. And
Okay, again, the use table reference is at the very beginning of the section on the residential.
and that may be sufficient.
Districts.
To the extent that the commission, I can already hear there's a majority that says reference the use table just to eliminate. I don't, it doesn't seem necessary, but I could live. with it.
Okay, so we can pull that language out of the front of the section on residential zones and put it back into each of the individual residential zones. So it's not duplicated.
May
in
apply to all the
places.
zones, just the same statement.
Half the group here, I'm with you.
Because like I said, we tried to take the stuff that was consistent between all the zone districts and
Put
put
it in
it
the
up
first
front.
paragraph.
Well, my,
And you said it earlier, these residential districts are defined by density. So you need to include that.
Within the statements for each of the districts, I'm
Right,
fine with that.
right.
But in terms of like, what uses can you do here? It says that up front before we drill into each of the individual residential zones.
Right.
I agree with you, but
That's fine.
no, I don't think there's an issue about the use table. I think it's just the wording of whether we want to say explicitly, this is for single family homes. But I don't see that that makes any difference whatsoever, because you're still gonna go to the table and say, I can build 25 helipads, let me go see the city. And I just,
Yeah,
it doesn't
but-
matter
but
what
the
use
part
table
about
is explicit.
intention, do you know what I'm referring to when I say examples, part of the intent? When one says the intent is to accommodate detached dwellings. When someone had a multifamily use that was many little single family.
Well, that's why I
It was
asked.
said that,
I
it
didn't know
was
the
said,
facts
well, that
of
was just
what
general
the-
intent, it didn't apply.
No, and I
I never meant to say we wouldn't stick to the use tables. I'm just
No,
saying,
no, this wasn't a question,
Okay.
the use table doesn't say whether it's detached or not detached, or something. This was the language in the first paragraph of the multifamily zoning district that is intended to accommodate detached dwellings. I said, well, that's just intended to accommodate, that didn't mandate that they be detached. That was the. And it was one of the biggest issues, and when was it, like 2020 or some 2021, it was one of the biggest issues in the city that time.
Valerie, I remember
Because-
that.
Because
Around the same time I got separated.
yes, and I guess I don't.
If the
understand
statement at
That's
the-
why-
the statement at the front
Intended to do this. Just
clarify,
asking.
clearly indicates that the use table takes precedence over all this. Then we don't need the clarification and we don't need to have the word intent. It doesn't matter either way if we have intent or not.
That's fine with me too.
Okay, so Jen, I'm
Yes.
actually reasonably clear that for each of these different zone districts, ambiguous language should be eliminated. So whether it's, no, seriously, that's what I've heard. So if I'm incorrect, let me know. So when it says feels like, should look, desired, we want to get rid of all of that. It says, this is what we're doing in this zone district.
Single family detached,
Yep.
Okay,
multifamily attached.
Nobody's arguing with me on that one, so I must have nailed it.
No, I
Agree with you, Karen.
okay, so we'll just say the zone district is for detached single-family residences. So the first one, SR, the zone district, this zone district is for detached single-family residences at a low density. And for this UR, this zone district is for detached single-family residences at a higher density than the SR district.
Yes.
And we're not adding that additional,
Not
any
necessary.
additional language. Perfect. I agree.
Good.
All right. Number 23. It's in the footnote, 7,500 instead of spelling out, oh, that's an easy one. That's yes. Agreed, yeah. I think your current code spells it out and we'll just shorten that to the number, the numerical. Again, on 24, there was the comment about referencing the state definition for single family. We've talked about that. All right, here's another one of those height. So
20,
Thing,
20.
it's 20.
we're good? Okay. And then
No,
20.
no.
I don't think I
No, no.
commented till later in the draft, but these tables have footnotes. The footnotes seem to run considered, shouldn't each, when if you have footnotes. Note in the table, at the bottom of the table, you explain it, they should start renew at number one in each table.
Yes, they
So
should.
later on,
That,
you note 4 or 5 later on.
yeah, I think they were auto numbering, so we'll fix that.
So number 25 up there, would you change that from no change to 20 foot?
It is at 20 feet already.
Okay.
But the
No- oh, no
question,
change.
the question would suggest if you said no change that anyway, that it should be, you mean 25, so just say it's 20.
Okay.
Even though it's already that way.
I think the bigger check is just to make sure that we've got the correct numbers in the tables.
And that's going to be done probably several times during this revision. I mean, as we draft it first and as we modify it, we refer to something else. And then at the very end, everything's got to line up.
All right. 27. So now we'll say this zone district is for multifamily residences at a high density. Or at a density higher than the previous districts?
That's how the current code read, and I thought that should be brought over. It helps explain the difference between this districts and the previous two that we just talked about.
By the way, I
Intended, don't delete the word attached. I don't think you want
It
to
is
do that.
attached for multifamily.
No, what she's just typing right now
Oh,
doesn't
I
have.
see. Thank you.
Okay.
A high density. Do you want to say at a high density or at a density that is higher than?
Just like it's written, at a density higher than SR and UR districts.
We kind of repeat ourselves here, at a high density higher than SR and UR. Is that fine?
No, wouldn't say both.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. At a density higher than SR and UR.
Good.
And is there a reason to change multifamily residences, multifamily attached residential dwelling units? Be attached multifamily residences?
I saw a
I guess
reference.
either way is all right.
Yep.
Multifamily.
Where
I'm
are
not sure,
you?
is
Lee?
residence is a defined term and is it a dwelling unit, which the new language you want to type in?
Where are you, Lee? What are you, where are you reading?
Well, I'm just reading the new text she wrote in. The zone district is for attached multifamily residences. Modify the original, which referred to attached residential dwelling units. I guess multifamily residence is okay.
Now, we're gonna go back and double check what is the proper terminology because
Right.
we're just gonna look at that because that's a whole other rabbit hole not to go down.
Well, and we were calling them dwelling or residence and then single family, multifamily attached. I think this needs to be wordsmithed a tiny bit further. So we could call it residence or dwelling. We're not calling them dwelling units in the definitions. But this one I would say is single family attached and multifamily based on our definitions. Does that make sense to everybody?
How do people feel about the second sentence of the existing language? These areas shall be fully served by municipal sewer and water and sewer, and local areas shall accommodate projected impacts, including traffic, pedestrian access, parks, schools, commercial centers, and places of employment. I kind of like it.
I have a question. Do we allow development that doesn't have municipal water and sewer?
For multifamily, it seems like a good idea not to. That's one of the reasons I like it in there.
Well, can you put a septic system in the city? Can we have a separate well in the city?
There are septic, there's septics, there, plenty of the cities got septic systems.
Single family.
Single,
Because there is that,
single family, but not, you know, shouldn't put multifamily there. So I kind of like the second sentence. People agree.
I do too.
Yeah,
That's fine.
As long as it's above the pumping station, it's never gonna have a septic system.
Is that exact text from the ordinance?
I think that's probably the existing ordinance.
Yeah,
Or we should keep it in its entirety or strike it in its entirety?
Keep it,
We can keep it.
no, we're really supposed to just be restructuring as opposed to reinventing some things and,
Okay,
yeah, no, it's amazing what you have to spell out sometimes. So no, please keep it.
okay. Keep the second sentence.
Yes.
My typing's getting slower, guys. Okay. 28.
Only 25%.
Additional standards. Insert new paragraph using the text from 18-14-090 with revision of the internal reference to 18-34. Okay, let's pull up 18-14. Single family use. So this is a little small. I'm not sure how to make it any larger. Every single family project constructed in a multifamily zone district that requires a subdivision or replat is considered a conditional use and as such is subject to site plan review as outlined in 18.34. All right.
It's clear that this arose from some historic situation where somebody took a multifamily area and wanted to put a house in it. And it was said, and they were gonna subdivide to do that. It's a conditional use. I mean, the city's got limited amount of multifamily zones. There's a desire to make it a conditional use if someone's gonna try and chop up multifamily into single family dwellings now. I mean, maybe somebody knows the history of it, but I bet there was a problem that caused them to do that, and it's a sensible concern because, you know, if somebody comes with a good project, we want them to be able to use the multifamily for multifamily.
Yeah. It did come from a specific project and Valerie is very familiar with it. I was on the Board of Adjustment at the time. And that was for the Tamarack Tiny Home Project. Where those were classified as single family residences or dwellings. And
This
there was no-
citation predates that,
Yeah,
Larry.
this is much older.
This goes back
Is
to
it?
2000.
I don't know.
But
I think that,
I think it sounds sensible.
is there a date on that? 2000, yeah. Okay. Well, I thought single families were introduced as a conditional use in this zoning district.
No, this is an old provision.
Okay,
And listen, since it seems to make sense, I would be loath to take it out without having a pretty good reason.
Okay. So we can add that back in.
what section, what section are we in anyway?
It is in the multifamily suburban residential.
Okay,
And I believe that's where it was here. Yeah,
Probably in the other
multifamily.
residential. Looks like it should go under additional standards, right? Is that where it was recommended?
Yes. Is everyone good with that?
yes.
yes.
Okay. Comment 29 just goes back to the definition that we've already wordsmithed, so. And then 30 would be our height question again.
Yep.
And it is 20 feet in height, so we're good there. Okay. All right, let's see, 31. Another purpose statement. The zone district is intended to accommodate attached multifamily residences at a high density higher than the previous districts. Is it,
Move the word
Just-
accommodate, put 4.
right, we'll take accommodated and intended out, just say 4 like we did on the others. Is this zone district truly just multifamily, or does it also is it also for single family attached, like the last one, just at a higher density? And I guess I could look at the use table for that.
Well, it is in there as conditional. In the,
Attached residential dwellings.
Doesn't the same?
It's the same as
the last
MFS.
one Apply here, one we just brought in. If you want to carve out single family lots out of multifamily urban. Needs its conditional.
Mhm.
So basically,
MFS.
okay. Does that work for everybody?
Okay.
Okay,
And I need us to rewind here briefly to go back to, talking about that provision to add in there from, 18.14.090, the single family use, where every single family project constructed in a multi MFS zone that requires a subdivision or replat as a conditional use. That right there is not consistent with how the use table is currently structured. So when you look at the current use table, one single family dwelling unit on a single platted lot, that's not permitted in those multifamily districts. So that's just a built-in inconsistency.
No, it's, the table didn't get revised when the section was written. That's what's happened. I guess.
I don't know what didn't happen when, I just know it's inconsistent. And then the ability to put a single family development in a multifamily zone goes against the intent of the multifamily zone.
Right.
So I would say ditch that provision is probably safer, since the table already supports not having that provision.
Remember, you're looking at the existing code here,
Right,
and then you look at what's being proposed, you'll see it's not there.
I'm sorry. Okay, and I thought you guys were asking to put that back in.
Well, it was a provision in the existing ordinance in each of the multifamily zones that got dropped.
Okay.
So the
And I
question
think
is-
there's actually good reason for dropping it, since it is inconsistent with the current table. The current
Okay.
use table. Not even the proposed one, the current use table.
Yeah.
And again, I think what Lee's saying is that provision was not brought forward into the proposed.
Right, and I think it probably should be dropped.
Well, again, you're going back to the history,
Yeah,
That makes sense.
where single family dwellings in a multifamily zone was a problem,
Second
an issue.
paragraph of the ordinance. Paragraph in the ordinance appears to be, appears to be inconsistent.
the current one,
Well,
correct?
I mean, I would agree that based off the use table, that you would not add it back in those sections.
That's my take.
I agree with Karen.
Okay.
All right,
all right, so never mind that. Take it out.
It would not help to add it back in. I think we need to acknowledge that it's being eliminated, but it's, for reason. you know? It's not consistent with the intent of the zone. It's not consistent with how the use table's been in place for quite a while.
Catherine, you were sitting on the council, or you were close to the council before you got out of it. And you saw the hot heated debate about that particular issue. So it may be problematic when it gets to the city council.
To not allow single family homes in a multifamily district?
Yeah, no, I think we're fine. I mean, the way I interpret the code or the use table is if you look at it, if it's a multifamily dwelling is only allowed in MFS and MFU. So the attached multifamily, so a single family residence is not allowed in an MFS or an MFU as the code is currently written.
Table.
To the table, yes.
Yeah.
And so what Karen is, if I understand Karen correctly, the statement that I like, that I think should be there is already there based on the table.
Okay.
Am I correct, Karen?
The
Well, and that
incons-
statement is saying you can put a single family home in a multifamily
the
district.
inconsistency says that the inconsistency is a separate ordinance provision which allows somebody to come, city council, planning and city council to say, I'd like in this multifamily zone, you know.
Yeah, no, I
things like,
I
put an
flipped
apartment
it.
Building on this side and I want to put my house on the other side. Is that a conditional use you'll approve? That allows that situation. If we take out the new paragraph, they can't on a conditional basis.
But the other way to do that would be to have single family dwelling as a conditional use in a multifamily zone on the table, which
Right.
it's not.
Ask for to change in zone district. You don't
Right.
have to
Yeah,
accommodate all this
exactly.
stuff.
You just
Exactly.
rezone it.
So we
Right,
shouldn't have the statement in there allowing something that's not in the use table.
right. I agree.
And not consistent with the intent of the zone.
Well, and I think this is where we ended up getting where we had the problem was this sentence said you could have a conditional use permit for a single family home. But actually, I'm not it was 2019, and I do vaguely remember that part of the problem was it was an allowed use. It was permitted because it never came before council. It was an administrative.
There's
So
no
we changed the
conditional use.
code to conditional. And so now we have,
That's where that provision came from.
that's where, it's convoluted, Corey. Or Cole, sorry.
Thank you.
And it has been struck.
Okay, so sorry to
Right.
like hash that, but that was kind of an important point. So thank you for indulging me.
What's next, Jeff?
Absolutely. All right, we have 32. That's the one we just talked about. So we are not bringing that back in. 33. Again, back to the definition, and we've already wordsmithed that. And then 34. It's our 20 foot. Let's just double check that one. Wait, which zone district are we in? The next one, right?
MFU.
We'll just quick double check that. MFU height. It's also 20 feet. Okay, and then we have 35. 35 and 36 are both rewording the sentence. So the zone district is intended to accommodate detached manufactured dwelling units located exclusively in mobile home parks. The other suggestion is this land use category is for manufactured housing. Would other residential multifamily uses be permitted? I believe, well, per the use table, it looks like single family detached, which is weird, in manufactured housing. Dwelling manufactured on permanent foundation and not on permanent foundation. Those are the three uses that are permitted. So any thoughts on how we want to rephrase this one?
I'd suggest we do what we've just done before.
Yep.
Say this land use category, this zoning district, whatever is the right term to use for it,
Yep,
it's for manufactured housing.
Detached.
Municipal water and sewer and accessible and the second sentence leave in. Aside from the is intended to facilitate language, which is kind of soft. The sentence itself makes no sense. Housing in this land use category is intended to facilitate manufactured housing. As worded.
that is
Sure,
very
right.
weird.
That's
The
our
language
dwelling.
makes no sense as written.
Do we want to keep the located exclusively in mobile home parks on municipal water and sewer?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Yeah. I potentially have issue with the phrase manufactured housing. This is where I'm rusty, Jen. I'm not sure if that's a term of art under state law or not. So I think the bigger takeaway is that we need to just double check our language. And this particular section potentially predates a lot of those state law changes where that term of art was defined. So that's really what I want to double check. And then the industry has evolved even further, that there's things built to the HUD code. There's very small homes that are built to the Uniform Building Code, and then there's the homemade stuff built to I don't know what that people like to cite.
I don't like those.
They're the tiny homes on wheels. There's ones, the world has really evolved in the last 5-10 years around the whole concept of a tiny home.
30.
And back at the state planning conference, I had a conversation with a gentleman who's one of the top code writers in the country, Don Elliott with Clarion Associates. And like I said, when it comes to tiny homes, he was great. He's like, we know how to do this. It's a mobile home park. We've addressed this years ago in terms of how do you site multiple small structures in a closed space? We have standards. We know how to do that. And that's what this is.
Yep.
So I think that's if for something that potentially needs to be modernized, that would be this, is just to be very careful around what that terminology and that explanation is.
Manufactured home isn't a defined term in it, so whatever's the right term, use it.
That,
Yeah,
your number 38, the comment I put in there, that was part of what it's the
Yep.
distinction. And it is a very specific distinction between mobile and manufactured.
Yes,
And that's what happened in 1976.
Yeah.
So there really is, and it, based on past
We do
history, we
define
really
HUD
need to be
code.
sure this is cool.
in the definitions.
yeah.
Yep.
So I think this does need to be revisited from that even potentially legal perspective in terms of what is this covering and not covering, and making sure we're using the terminology correctly and capturing that concept of small detached structures get located here.
I think, if you go, Karen, into the Pikes Peak Regional Building Code, they're very more specific about that distinction in that code. Just,
Probably, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I've read it. It's been a long time since the
Yeah.
last time I read it, but there's a lot of very specific information.
Yeah, because that gets into how they get set on foundations and yeah.
Yeah, we have to be very careful. You're right.
and we've done some research recently on tiny homes, and I agree with everything you guys just said. I think that was a good conversation. The state of Colorado does have certification for tiny homes and tiny houses. So if it's a tiny home on wheels, there's one type of certification. And if there's a tiny house, which is typically built to your the International Building Code or local building codes, kind of one and the same. There's another certificate, and it's a little plate that they put in the actual home in a certain location. So there are some specific state standards that we can build on for tiny homes and tiny houses as appropriate. So, and then Val's absolutely right with this definition, and I think we have that in our definitions already, the difference between a mobile home and a manufactured home. Many communities are adopting more of the term manufactured home and then speaking to that the mobile homes are built prior to 1976.
And again, a lot of that is included in the definitions we work so carefully
Right,
craft. and
exactly.
Revisit, so. We have to be careful how we use the words in the rest of the code that match what we're intending.
Good. So I've left a note in here. I've highlighted manufactured housing. I think maybe that's the term that we need to just create as Karen would say, our term of art for that. But I think the rest of this we're okay with.
Can I ask a question? Is the second paragraph something that people wish to keep subject to? So if it is, I would suggest we change the language as the following regulations are proposed for adoption as minimum standards, and say the following regulations are minimum standards. As it wouldn't be proposed for adoption, it would be already adopted.
Yeah.
But more generally, what's people's reaction? The second sentence continue as a continuation of the first sentence. Is it useful, desirable?
I think it's desirable. And I agree with the need to get rid of the proposed for adoption, since this is in theory adopted.
Decades ago was adopted.
1969.
Believe it or not, that was before me.
Is that, and with that thought, beginning of the next section on uses, do we want to continue to reference ordinance 41-1969, known as the mobile home ordinance? We're doing a codification of our ordinances. I don't think you want to reference the old, we're taking from the old one that which we think is right and putting it here as a section of this chapter.
Oh, yeah, that something needs to be done with that.
I think
way.
you need to think about that one.
Mm.
The very, very, very first paragraph, if you would, Jen, can you split that into more than one big god awful sentence? The
Yes.
first paragraph, it's just,
This one?
yeah, that's one sentence.
Yeah.
Can we make it two?
It's actually two sentences.
Where
The bubble,
So
where the
all the
36
bubbles
is-
covering principle? Oh, good. It's like,
and it's actually municipal.
Yeah, those bubbles are not very forgiving at times.
Okay, so that one's good.
Okay. All right, let's see. Sorry, I just wanted to capture that note on uses. So we do need to look at removal of that first sentence. This whole paragraph could be simplified just to reference section 4.02, but we can look into that a little bit more. Okay. Let's see, 37. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened here, so we'll fix that. $38 we've already addressed. 39. Footnote numbering, yes. Perfect. Sorry guys, I'm just going quick. The numbering's off here. That's what that's referencing. 41 is the same comment. 40. Section 2.02.06 is divided into 47 clauses, which is much too many for easy recognition. Restore the subheadings that are in the original ordinance in the caption of each of the clauses. Okay.
I'm suggesting that permits and inspections be the heading, and then you group the 6 that follow it under that. And there's 10 different groups, but what, 8 or 9, some groupings. It's a lot easier to look at a list of those than it is to find 47 paragraphs to find the subject you're looking for.
Okay, I'll have to look back.
If you see the first.
Okay,
bunch,
I see. So permits and
inspection.
inspections, And then,
Group them together and then.
okay. Yep,
Again, this is why I recommended the entire zoning district be moved over to here, but certainly these modifications are warranted for sure.
okay. I get it. So
Type them
we'll,
all out. They're all listed on the sheet, site layouts and X, they're all listed.
yep, okay. Um. Let's go back up to 42. Since
Just
the
as a point of
15
curiosity, are there any
Yeah,
mobile home park districts that aren't currently built out
No,
that are zoned in this town? Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay.
No, it does raise a question. If someone with an existing mobile home park wishes to do something else with it. I mean, I guess that might be okay, but as it is now, he's totally at the mercy. He's gonna have to come in and he's have to change the zone.
well,
He
there,
can't do anything. He can't put apartment complex or townhouse project in.
the two mobile, I believe, the two mobile home parks, neither one are zoned mobile home park.
That's correct. Yeah.
They're all grandfathered.
Yeah, they're nonconformities and like the one down by Walmart, that's one of the commercial zones and I'm not sure.
We said that was conditional use, yeah.
Yeah,
commercial.
but and it predates zoning, so.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, we actually don't have anything zoned mobile home park. And the parks we do have are not, they're in different districts,
Okay, so there is no zoned mobile home park now.
correct?
Okay.
Isn't the one down south of Woodland Station a mobile home park?
That is a mobile home park, but it's not zoned that way.
Really?
Yeah,
The one over by Safeway isn't either?
correct.
Mm-mm. Nope. No,
No.
the,
Oh, I don't know about that one. I'm sorry, I don't know about that one.
yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's county.
There's two in the city and two in. None of them are zoned mobile.
So if they're not zoned, do any of these provisions apply?
It's only for new ones.
So if they want to become a mobile home park, they have to apply
Do all those?
this.
So we have a zone with a permitted use, but there's no area of the city zoned for that use or
But you don't want to
in that
exclude
zone.
area and take it out.
What's that?
You don't want an exclusion area and not make the provision for it. It just happens to have no zone.
No, I know. I just thought out of curiosity, I thought that was the case, but I wanted to confirm it.
Home park.
Can we
This is
put it
what
in
you'd
your
have to
backyard?
comply with.
Exactly.
Not?
Yeah, the one.
Sorry, didn't mean to derail the progress here.
The one the other side of Woodland Station, that's actually zoned central business district. And then the one down by Walmart, yeah, service commercial.
Not the Walmart one, the one on this side of the road.
So,
It's not a mobile. I don't know if you call it a mobile home park.
Okay,
Small home.
Oh.
got something else, Jen?
And then the tiny homes, yeah, that's, yeah, that's.
$15
Jen?
application fee somewhere.
sorry, I was muted. I was talking, you just couldn't hear me.
No, we couldn't.
Okay, the next comment is in this permits and inspections renewal application. Since the $15 application fee is insufficient to provide for a compliance review, I recommend that the applicant, excuse me, the applicant for renewal be required to self-certify that the mobile home park is in compliance with 2.02.06.
Where is the $15 provision?
No, I was recommending it, but I think I exceeded the scope of what I was expected to do. It was clear to me.
no,
So I'll-
Overachiever.
I'll withdraw the comment.
Okay,
no, that's actually a really good comment.
I thought it was a good idea, but I guess we
Something.
weren't looking for good ideas. We're just looking for,
Well, no.
let's get it
We do appreciate a good idea.
transcribed correctly.
Um,
Sorry.
Yeah, no, and one of the other challenges with mobile home parks and such is that there has been other changes in the state law around mobile home parks and the management of them and other things that really govern that property owner. And I'm not sure what here is inconsistent with that. So that's a whole other legal review that we'll make sure the attorney takes a look at for us. But yeah, when you've got that kind of a low fee, and it doesn't clearly have, that ability for it to have gone up by cost of living every year, so yeah, that really does need to be revisited. So thank you.
Don't we typically have language say that the fees will be set by resolution by the city council annually?
But those all happened like in the 2000s and not in 1969.
And collect the $15 anyway, so since they're not real.
Yeah, they're not licensed parks. So,
Just a few loopholes there. All right.
So apologies for the side discussion, but so if they're not zoned that way, then what provisions do apply? How are they governed? And
basically what you see is what you get. No, seriously. I mean, you're laughing, but that's kind of what it is. We do end up with situations where they want to take the home from 1959 out and put a newer one in. And that's where it gets to be a really tight dance on our end. And because that really is an improvement to bring something in that's newer, just from that basic life safety living situation. So we're looking at what is the size of the home? Are you able to maintain separation? Just how can, and it does limit what somebody can put in there because the homes have gotten bigger over the years. So you're not putting in a 70-foot long double wide where something used to be 50 by 8. So that's where we handle it just administratively, because basically you're removing a dwelling structure and you're putting a dwelling structure back in. So there's no real net change, but it does improve overall life safety of the people there. So that's kind of the balance that we do at an administrative level.
So you're not okay. Under the ordinance as in.
Not a lot of times because of just the size of the units from the dark ages and how they're placed and then a lot of times though, there's no incentive for the owner to like get the property zoned mobile home park. Why should I go through all that pain and suffering? I got one now.
Why they would go about it. I know that I don't have to abide by that words. But like there's always a new standard. Like shouldn't they follow through that?
It's the beauty of non-conformities. As long as you're not messing with it, you can keep doing it. And like I said, these kind of fall into a little bit more of a gray area, that there's a greater benefit of upgrading that structure than there would be to continue to have somebody live in something from 1959 that's probably not been maintained for 50 years. Yeah.
I'm trying to be funny, but are mobile home parks part of the governor's initiative for affordable housing?
I honestly don't know.
They should be.
They
Again,
are. Oh,
go ahead, Jen.
yeah. Well, I said they are, and then I realized actually it's Proposition 123 that does include provisions to protect mobile home parks. Or not provisions, but incentives.
Incentives for new?
Well, yeah, you can use Proposition 123 money to develop new mobile home parks or protect existing mobile home parks. And the situation that came up that I've seen come up or be suggested is where mobile home parks are, let me think if I can get this right. Mobile home parks might be under a certain ownership and be, or maybe they're rented or something to that effect. And an entity can buy that mobile home park to preserve it for the future use, rather than a lot of times they just kind of go default into a weird state and then they get redeveloped. So it's preserving those mobile home parks for more of a long-term use.
Thank you.
Yep.
Affordable housing.
You could build an apartment.
All right. This was a funny one. Board of Trustees, and I have no idea where that came from.
Probably the standard language that applied everywhere in the state. Yeah,
In 1969.
And was
Yeah.
never, the search and replace function failed
Yeah,
when it was adopted.
yes. So we will update that to city council. All right, 45, location and land area requirement, sorry. Let's see, does this not just restate what is listed in the table at the top of the section, maybe an opportunity to combine these?
Yeah, it literally just states exactly what's in the table. I mean,
Yep,
there is additional language below it, you know, in this couple sentences down that includes the water, sewer and stuff like that, but I think that gets included in other sections of this.
But there are some provisions under this section that are not included in the section you were referencing. That's
In
probably
the table, yes, that's what, yeah.
Gonna keep it here.
Okay, we'll look at that.
okay. Let's see, 50, wait. Oh, my goodness, my eyeballs can't see anymore. I was looking at these numbers instead of these. 46. Is this intentionally vague or just listed because it is in the ordinance? Also, what recreational areas exist at the current mobile home parks?
Well,
So,
the parks that we have were not built to this standard, so probably none. But if somebody was proposing one, is this something that is desirable to have as part of the new park that's potentially being developed?
Well, I think it's desirable, but it's incredibly vague. I don't know. Who are the people like that? That's not a. You know,
It's very
I
1969.
don't know. Yeah, I don't know what that means. So,
Means the residents of the park, but yeah.
well, I understand, but like, how can you, what are you anticipating? A skate park? They all like teenagers, you know, like, I don't. I would just, if we were going to keep such a thing, I would like it to be more structured of what that was supposed to look like.
So just to
you're
understand
right,
kind of
but
the
we can't-
bounds here,
We're not gonna fix it. But you're right.
but
Oh,
if it's but if it's a valid ordinance, then so be it. That's the rule of the land.
yeah, I'm not trying to create work, so if it's,
I don't know that
it's
we
fine
can
how it is.
rescind ordinances, right?
Yeah. Yeah, only the council can.
I mean, we could perhaps recommend to the council, these ordinances seem to be either vague or overtaken by that, but I don't think we can remove them, correct? I'm just trying to understand the rules of the road.
I'm as new as you are, so.
Okay, I'll look around. I'll look that way.
Karen, you want to clarify? We've it's passed by ordinance, we're not at liberty to modify that.
Well, and that's where it's like this really awkward line we're trying to walk in terms of what does need to be addressed. What's, while staying really more true to restructuring, with this one on, the recreation areas. I think we probably can put some more contemporary language in there, you know, around that. But probably without, you know, really creating a giant other problem.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not. Doesn't matter really, right? But we've already discussed. It's not
don't have
zone
no-
anyways, but
Yeah, I don't have anybody knocking on our door to talk to the planners about citing a mobile home park. I've not had that since I've been here the past 2 years, so. I mean, tomorrow's a new day, but.
I was just gonna say, it's gonna happen, but
I mean, there was an application for one a couple years back, though, over by, kind of by where the Denny's used to be.
Yeah.
So it's not inconceivable.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so they're now building, I guess, two-family. Seems what it was originally zoned for.
Where are we, Jen? Jen?
All right, sorry, I was looking at the existing code because the next comment is accurate. You totally deleted. Sorry, Val, I like the way you stated this. Totally deleted site layout improvements, mobile home space, which it looks like we did, and I'm not sure why, so we'll look back into that. It looks like we've also deleted access and service roads. I don't know if anyone highlighted that one.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Oh, right after it. Hello, Jennifer. Okay, we will look into that. I'm not really sure the logic behind that. Okay. How's this different than, sorry, number 49? Site layout recreation areas. How is this different than what we just talked about? Can we combine? This one, so personally, I would say yes, we could combine this. This is the language I was actually looking for when we were talking about
Yeah,
this previous one.
they were just put out in different order.
Yeah. Just, all of this is subject to, this is really clumsy and no one likes it and such too is. I don't feel very good about revising 2, 3, 4 paragraphs scattered through it and feeling like we've accomplished something. It's more like the whole thing is. It's kind of ugly. It is what it is. I'm trying to fix parts of it. It suggests we actually approve of the language overall. I don't think anybody really has any love of it.
Okay, so based on that, which is a great observation, there probably, I do think we need to adjust the numbering like you had previously suggested, Lee, with the broader categories.
The first sentence saying what it's for and getting the right term for manufactured.
Well, and
whatever it is.
even then that site layout all goes together and then, you know, I can't think whatever the other
Permit, location
service
and land area.
you know,
Yeah.
so we take that into account for restructuring, but in terms of like the rest of the nuance around this, that probably is a different separate project in terms of, which is what you're talking about, is like, this really needs to be looked at to refresh it as a whole. So that's potentially on that list that we've been generating of things that are beyond the scope of what we're working on now. Especially since this is not exactly a high demand item, you know, for the planning staff right now. Well, no, I do that only because I've got other projects in the queue right now that are high demand. That's all.
Would you say mobile home parks are go in the same category as signs, don't touch?
Other than the couple of ones we've identified, yeah, probably.
Okay,
Yeah.
Different reasons perhaps.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, the signs are for the new folks, the signs are don't touch because that went through a pretty involved process fairly recently. So with a lot of brain damage and pain and suffering is what I've been told. So that's why everybody's like, no, God, no, don't touch that. This is more like, this is a big project and beyond the scope of what we're doing. Let's not dive in now. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So. Okay, what else you got, Jen?
All right, we've got
50.
yeah, item 50 is mentions animal proof in the following section, but not here.
Yeah, basically in the paragraph after it, it mentions an animal proof container, but not in that first paragraph.
Rodent proof containers.
It makes you feel any better. I also, when I was writing it in hand today, was the same spelling error. Consistent.
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear that last comment.
Yeah, your mic's off, Cole.
Oh, sorry. So yeah, so oh, now I feel really loud. The second paragraph mentions an animal proof container, like it's basically a repeat of the exact same language. But the first paragraph doesn't. Again, I don't.
Oh, I
realize
see.
It doesn't matter. You know.
Just some semantics in there. Okay.
Yes.
Animal proof, rodent proof, and animal proof. Okay, I get it now. All right, 51.
My next one won't matter either. I was asking about how the city enforces during COVID. Because it mentions
Well, home parks, they
Right.
didn't exist.
All right, and then 52.
A really minor point I thought about, I didn't make a bubble comment, but that's about oil storage. I wonder if we could just say heating oil, because I think that's the intent. Technically, someone could have old used motor oil in a barrel behind their house. 2.020636.
36. Oil storage. So you're saying, can you just repeat that very first part? It would be
I would just say home heating
home
oil.
heating oil.
Yeah. Just, I think that's the intent, just to clarify.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Can I come back?
Oh,
to the
whoops,
suggestion
that's
that
a new
maybe we
comment.
shouldn't try and fix all these things?
Can we
Right,
just, yeah,
right,
the
right.
mobile home? For now.
See ordinance 41-1969. That could be the whole dang section.
Cole, did you have a question about how is this amount determined?
yeah, it was just for the violation penalties, but we don't, yeah, again.
Okay. 53. All right, we're out of mobile homes. Woo. 53. Add new section referencing outside. Okay, we had talked about that earlier. So see,
Well, excuse me, Jen.
yeah,
You said 106 comments. We're at 53. We're halfway
Yes.
through. Been here for 2 hours. Is anybody interested in taking a brief break? Or just keep on going? I guess we'll keep on going. Very good. Thank you.
all right.
You just out of here at
Um,
9.
We'll see.
Okay.
All right, 54, sidewalk construction required. Delete as amended. As it is superfluous. I think that's fine. It's kind of implied throughout, so. Is everyone okay with just deleting the as amended? Okay, I see thumbs ups.
Yeah.
All right. 55. This clause should refer to all, okay, we've addressed that one earlier. All right, and then 57.
And but in somewhere in here, do we need to do what we did in residential to define which zoning districts are the commercial and industrial zoning districts?
We were gonna make that
To the
change to
table.
the table up
Yeah.
front.
Front.
Yeah.
And that's sufficient then?
I
Okay.
think
Yes.
so.
Okay, all right.
All right, this paragraph restricts the number of accessory buildings rather than land use intensity. Consider renaming it accessory buildings. It's a good point.
Yeah, I think we had an earlier land use intensity ratio paragraph, which
Oh,
cross references to a coverage table. This is the same land use intensity ratios as how many buildings. Sounds like it's a accessory building provision, not a land intensity
Right.
ratio.
I am fine with that. Is everyone else okay?
Yep.
Okay. All right, 58. All districts, okay, so Val, this our previous comments about adding all commercial and industrial, that covers that comment?
Yeah.
Okay. Um. 59, I do not have anything to compare this to. It is not a 1-for-1 to previous. Yeah, I'm looking at mine as well, and it's,
Yeah, I couldn't figure out that the general commercial / industrial zone districts, I didn't have anything to compare it to. Or maybe I'm foolish, but I couldn't find something to compare it to.
I think you're right. I think this section didn't have this, but for consistency, since we've added this to the residential areas, we're just being consistent and adding the same general language to the commercial section. And Val's talking about all of these, this whole page. Although some of this must have come from somewhere, because the 25% of lot shall be landscaped.
Yeah, I think it could have been
NCCC
moved
and
from
FD.
somewhere else. I was
Yeah.
having a hard time.
Sorry, could you explain what's the problem here? I've lost.
Oh, okay, this whole section is not a section that's in the section of the code that we had. So it's like, I think it was pulled from some other places and all put in one.
Its structure is like we have in residential, and it's the structure,
Yeah. But it's not-
These are conditions that are general. There's
I'm
there's
not
a
saying,
sign provision for each of the.
no, Lee, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the list. My point was, there wasn't anything listed as a commercial / industrial zone district general thing, and I couldn't figure out where to find it to compare it.
You can't, because we added that because we were duplicating every zoning district with all this stuff. So it was recommended that we just have one provision dealing with uses, conditional use, size, so on and so forth, instead of being addressed each and every time in every district.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, I have to strike the copy unless I forget to delete all this stuff. Every district.
so when you look at,
Okay, okay, gotcha. So this is.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay.
I see exactly what was just said. It is later, and then it was just brought to the front.
Okay, yeah, I was just sitting there trying, I wasn't awake enough.
it's quite the restructuring is what happened.
All right. Moving on to 60. Neighborhood commercial.
Same old,
Yep, same old thing. So
this district,
Is for general,
not intended,
not to provide suitable locations for.
right?
okay. And everything else will be okay in here. So just kind of changing that first part. Same here. Is that the same? Nope, that might be the next, but that's the same response. 62, same thing, same thing. And 64. Look how quick we get to go through those. All right, 65. Where did this come from?
Oh. This is the only place in the tables on the side setbacks that you added the greenhouse comments. It's there a bunch of times. It's the only, we don't have that kind of a thing in anything else.
That's because greenhouses got special side provisions. You can put
Okay,
it there or
Right.
you add as additional standards. You say, well, for greenhouses. you can-
I just wasn't sure where, it's like, since we didn't do that with anything else, it's just a question.
It's commercial greenhouses too.
Yeah. I believe that is correct, that the greenhouses are a commercial use. So this was the only area that it was applicable to.
I'm okay with putting it with, it's not a whole lot of stuff and it's in the right section of side setbacks.
As to say,
It's fine.
Jen, make a note, we may want to look at this, that this may be a standard associated with the use, that it may actually be better served as one of the supplementary use standards.
Yeah.
Yep,
As opposed
like
to
that.
showing up here.
Mm.
So when you've got a use table that says you can do a greenhouse in that zone district, and then it also says, see these extra standards. And it's there that you can say, if you're doing a greenhouse in one of these zones, you do need to apply additional setbacks as part of citing them. Did you follow that?
Yep,
Okay.
I think that's perfect.
yep. Right below that table too. You have a
Another
footnote.
numbering.
Number, yep.
Okay. And we have 66, so this will be that same
Same old,
updating
same
land use
old.
categories. Yep. Same with 67. Same with 68. All right, 69. Greenhouses we're good with, right?
Yep.
Or good with the last comment we had on that is what I meant by that. Sorry. 70. Oh, here we go again. Same.
Same old,
I
same
love
old.
this. All right. 71. I'm going to skip to 72 really quick because that's that same greenhouse comment. Now 71 looks like, do we need to specify a maximum density given the occupancy is permitted above the first floor? And
Every
does your
place we
current,
have dwelling units, we always specify an allowable density, and so since dwelling
Right.
units are permitted.
I'm
Okay.
fine with it worded the way it is NA, not applicable, because I win the lottery, I'm not here. 5 years from now, you've got a different planner sitting here going, well, did they omit that from the code? I better go double check. I'd rather have an NA as opposed to, did they forget something? Did it not get carried forward? You know, to.
So there is no density requirement at all, and you're just saying it's not applicable.
Correct.
Okay.
So they could have apartments 3 feet wide. I'm being facetious, but I'm just
Yes.
Yeah. On the second floor.
on.
Oh. There are limitations, but it's like, what does the density end up being? Because there's what, a building height here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there is at a certain point, you can only fit so much in there. But what that number would be, I don't know.
Yeah, and Jen, on 72, there were two special things, and I don't know if you want to do the same thing with that 6 foot.
I see
minimum.
that one. Yeah. So our side setback is 0 feet. It's 15 feet when a side yard abuts a residential zone lot. And it's 6 feet when building is not located on the property line. I think that is still applicable here, the way I'm reading that. But this minimum 10 feet from platted street almost feels like it's another one. Okay, we'll look at that a little bit more. All right. 73. Looks like it's our same comment about land use categories. That's interesting that got carried over. 75. All right. On to a new comment, 76. I think we've already talked about this one, haven't we? That there really isn't a new zone district. This is just new category, new title.
What's
Everyone follow that?
intended there? What is intended there? Actually have a zoning district called for open space?
No.
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 That's what we were talking about earlier.
Okay. then I don't understand how, what district would fall under this?
The only district was ag, this was our discussion earlier on.
Yeah, that we're gonna move
We'll
that.
call this miscellaneous.
Yep.
We'll drop the category miscellaneous below, so it only appears once. It has-
So we're gonna drop the whole thing now in open space zoning
Where it
district.
says open space district here, it'll say miscellaneous districts.
And we have a miscellaneous coming up?
Yeah, no, this will be the
Ag.
start of the miscellaneous districts.
Right.
So within the miscellaneous districts, you'll see ag. And then whatever we've got after that.
PUD.
The overlays.
Public
Yeah.
and
DED.
Okay,
Oopsie, can't spell.
when I first read that, Karen, I really thought of just what happened with the city buying the new Avenger property. Was somebody looking for what is the proper district? I mean, what is the proper zoning for the Avenger property?
Well, it's outside city
land.
limits.
Part of it.
Yeah,
All of
All of
it.
it?
All of it is outside city
Yeah.
limits.
oh, it is?
Yes.
Oh, okay, never mind. I didn't know that. Okay,
I mean, unless
Okay.
there's I'm unaware of, the part that what I think it is it's, yeah, it crosses between two counties. But yeah, it's all outside city limits.
okay.
So there's a comment about adding a purpose and intent statement to clarify this section. Let's step back for a second. I know we talked about adding a purpose and intent to this whole chapter, but Larry, are you also saying you want a purpose and intent under each of these titles?
I think that's what I said, but I'm double thinking that right now.
Mm-hmm.
these are just group convenience groupings.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm thinking.
And your purpose statements really fall under each of the actual zone districts.
Well, that comment was really directed just to when it was open space zone, right? Is really where that was?
Yeah, well.
Your statement after, the purpose and intent. But we're not calling it that now, so.
Yeah, so maybe that was it. Larry, are you okay if we don't add purpose and intent statements at the beginning of each of these kind of categorized areas?
Yes.
Okay. And then we've already talked about this one. Just we're grouping all of those miscellaneous
Yep.
zone districts. 79. Ag.
That's more of the same old, same old.
Okay,
This zone district is intended for agricultural uses in areas of 10 acres or more.
all right, and we've already addressed this one. At 80's back up here, okay. And
That was already addressed.
Right.
yep. Okay, good. All right, 82. In the public, semi-public, okay, so this is our same comment, right?
Yep.
And 83. Miscellaneous is for P, SPL, PUD. Okay, so that's been addressed, Val, right? Just this whole combination.
Yes, I think we've already done it with the other stuff. that was
Okay.
done.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure we got the intent of that comment.
Yeah,
Um,
it was, because it was just the way it was written. It said it was general, it was very general with districts, building structures without saying what ones really fell in there. That was where my mind was.
okay,
I mean,
Okay.
It was,
that makes sense. Okay, back to our PUD section. Now this is 84. We'll have to look into this, but Larry, are you aware of other sections that other than application procedures?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so you just want to make sure that everything standard wise made it in here and everything procedure wise is in the procedure chapter. So we can double check that.
Yep.
Okay. 85. So the suggestion is to remove planning commission and replace with planning department, and it reads, to best accomplish these objectives and in order to develop an acceptable plan that is in the keeping with other chapters in this code, is essential that the proponents coordinate their development with the planning department.
Yep.
Is that good? Okay.
I think the only time I remember having any project wanting to coordinate with us was the recent Karis master plan overview. And they came to us and say, we want to just kind of throw our ideas out here. We're not asking for any approvals, but that would seem like some of a coordination, but that can be done.
This
Are
is,
you sure this wasn't intended to say planning commission in the first instance?
well, that's where I'm gonna go. A historical point. When you look at the dates of the original
69.
ordinances from 69, 71, that was from back in the dark ages of planning, when they, people largely dealt directly with the commissions, with the elected bodies, that, staff to handle a lot of that, really wasn't thought of, envisioned, or dealt with, especially at, you know, a small rural, type level. So that's actually, I think, pretty common language for that era. Now, in the days of, you know, having complex enough ordinances where you need that professional staff to handle the volume, that's where you rely on the staff and the planning department to deal with a lot of that and get the appropriate application in front of the boards and commissions for their review, recommendations, and decisions.
So you're saying this amendment's appropriate?
I think it's appropriate, but that's I guess it was Lee's point. Yeah, it was originally absolutely intended to be planning commission from the historical perspective.
Okay.
That's what staff's for.
So
I'm
good.
I'd
Let's make
recommend.
that
we-
change and let's move on.
Yep. This next one from Lee is absolutely accurate. Principal versus principal. So yes, we can make that change. Let's see, 87.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
The structure of this paragraph didn't quite work. You know,
Okay.
open space, it says open space may be accepted as a common open space requirement under the provisions of this section unless its character and quality have been approved by the planning commission. So it could be,
Well, the word
I'm
no,
not sure, first, the quality of things actually technically may go to the planning commission rather than the planning department, so we might not reference it. But what they should say is there is an open space requirement. Oh yeah, down below at number 7, it's set. There should be open spaces required in accordance with the following table. Boom, put the table in, and then you start in and say the quality of the space is dependent on all the following factors. Now you run through your factors 1 through 7. It is written, it doesn't actually here say you have an open space requirement. It just somehow, it's not even just a passive construction. It forgets to put in, because it doesn't start by saying there's an open space requirement of so many acres.
Yeah, number 7.
Well, that's what I'm
Exactly.
saying, move that up.
Yeah.
So as I said, my suggested word, it was to start with number 1, take number 7 and build it into the beginning of the paragraph. And then say the quality and character of that will be approved by the city in considering the following factors, then list all those
There
factors.
you go.
Yeah, so it actually states the requirement.
Sounds good.
Okay. Got it. I like it. Our next comment, 88. Landscaping. Insert new clauses C and D using the current ordinance wording for permitted uses and parking. Okay.
These were 2 of the specific ones that were omitted, I think. existing provisions of the PUD ordinance.
Okay. Yep, parking is in there. What was the other one you said? Landscaping? No,
Permitted uses dot 100.
permitted uses.
Dot 120.
Okay. All right, yes, we'll add those back in.
Can I ask a dumb question?
There is no dumb question. Ask your
Well,
question.
okay, we're referencing section 18. Section 18 isn't gonna exist anymore.
Correct.
So how do we do that?
Where
I'm
are we
just,
referencing it?
well, that sentence says for permitted uses 18.30.100 and then parking. Are those gonna be in this thing or not?
No, we'll need to update them to the current sections that they're in.
Okay, thanks. I was
They're
just,
just missing.
you got me.
Yeah,
So
I just showed those are
Yeah.
the current
yeah,
paragraphs. that got
so we're gonna
updated.
change them to the, where it
Yes.
really is now.
Didn't parking get pulled up into the general provisions though, under
I,
miscellaneous?
that might be, yes, let's
Okay.
look here. Well, because PUD would be under miscellaneous, so yes, our
Yeah.
uses and parking.
Open back up to the ordinance and take a look at it. I think they're specific to the PUDs.
There, it says off-street parking requirements in the PUD district shall follow. Or shall be as here, I can pull it over. For residential purposes as provided in section blah, blah, blah of this code for non-residential. So it's just referencing two different code sections that have now been combined.
And
Now
they-
I can't get this guy.
Kind of to some of the conversation, the PUD may need to be a standalone district by itself and not into that other category of miscellaneous zones, because you've got that ability to modify and change so many different things when you establish a PUD. So I think we need to potentially peel this one off a little bit separate, Jen.
I would agree with that.
Which is where some of what you guys are flagging about where's the parking, where's the landscaping, probably does need to be specific to the PUD, since those are all things that when somebody wants to propose one, they can request to
Well,
modify or
Well, it's
propose.
still, because we have specific parking PUD provisions in the existing ordinance. So that would be, they would carry through.
Mhm.
If it's not grouped in miscellaneous.
Yeah.
Then it would eliminate the question, did we double reference it from?
So I think that piece we need to, like I said, we potentially need to peel off PUDs.
Right.
That would make more sense.
So
Yep, I think
residential,
that's good.
commercial, PUD.
Miscellaneous,
And this-
PUD, and then our overlays.
All right. I think that's a very sound decision. 89 takes us to our first overlay zone. So this is that same language. Now, I will say these were all new because we didn't specifically call out the overlay zones in your current code, but we did pull these purpose statements from existing language.
Yeah. No, actually.
Oh.
No, they're in the categorization, not miscellaneous. That's where we are right now.
Okay, Jen, I'm sorry, I was distracted.
Is B intent or is B purpose? The intent of the overlay and these regulations to guide the architectural and site planning components of development. That sounds like it's the purpose. Rather than the intent.
Okay, this is all existing language. That isn't always, having spent time with it, you know, over the past year, that isn't
Uncomfortable.
always the most helpful, useful, but it's what we got.
Okay.
And yeah,
Okay.
I agree with y'all's frustration that purpose and intent have been used interchangeably. They kind of waffle, they duplicate, and it's like, what is this? So I'm actually enjoying you feeling my daily pain.
Just keep it consistent from one section to the next. Is the purpose and intent or intent and purpose? Or
Yeah,
what are we talking about?
Okay. I would say, I think our previous sections just say purpose, so we probably could just say purpose and then take off of the Woodland Station Overlay District.
Right.
All right.
Well, and
Um,
I think to your point, Lee, under the numbering, actually, hang on, let me check the current.
Would it make sense to take, you get the purpose and you remove the overlay station and then you take A and B and just wordsmith that into one definition or paragraph as opposed to the intent in B versus the purpose in A?
Actually, this is consistent with how it's currently numbered, where you've got the purpose of the Woodland Station is, and you've got subsection A and subsection B. Subsection A is just like this, where it says the purpose is, and subsection B
Okay.
says the intent is.
Okay, I mean, I know this is a weird piece of property and it has its own standing, so I get, that's fine.
Well, and this, like I said, what you see here is exactly how it's currently structured. So it's not like we dropped a ball or accidentally renumbered something. No, this is what it looks like.
Keep it the way it is.
okay. All right, 90. To clarify, insert at the end of the sentence as may be amended.
You put that at the end of every paragraph? Why does this one have to be as it may be amended?
Yeah, and we've removed that from others, so I would ask the same question. Do we need that in here?
Well, I put this comment in and I put it in there because we recently amended the Woodland Station overlay. Were we? And I thought, well, maybe it's very important to say, well, I think it applies. I mean, it doesn't apply. It implies that the overlay or any other zone district will change through time and be amended. So just strike it.
Okay. 91. Check this reference. Okay, we'll double check the reference on both of these.
And I realized I wrote a lot of those kind of comments, and I realized as I was going through it that I don't have the current sections that you have available to you to see.
Okay,
I don't have them, so that will be called later.
yeah, okay, perfect, but good catch. Is or is not permitted uses. Not just uses.
Not have made that clear, because the statement just says uses within, so it's, okay, is it permitted uses within? Or is it just using it?
Okay, so maybe
Uh,
we could change the terminology on this too, to just say, like we said earlier, I think allowed and conditional uses. For the title, would that work?
I think it'll be, yeah, I think it'd be better. Anybody else have a comment? It just, for me, it just says uses is too,
A lot of
Not
uses would be
specific enough.
appropriate.
Huh?
Adding the word allowed.
yeah.
Okay. All right, we can do that. I like it. 94. Zoning development permits are reviewed and approved by the city planning. Insert recommendations of after subject to the. Where are we? Oh, we're in the sign overlay now. All signs requiring a zoning development permit pursuant to section. This shall be reviewed by and are subject to recommendation of. Is that what we're saying? Let's see, insert. Subject to the recommendation of the Woodland Park. Okay, yeah. Is that okay with everyone else?
Well, it's pretty different.
Well,
Yes.
no, and part of what this is is in that Woodland Station overlay, because that falls within the DDA's boundary, and that was a property that until just recently was under the ownership of the DDA. When somebody wants to do something, you know, in that zone district, propose a sign at a staff level, we're checking, does it meet all the metrics, you know, size, place, time, manner. But the DDA has a role in that they also look at, do we like this sign? So that's what this is. There's the staff check on time, place, and manner. And then there's the DDA does get a say in whether or not they like that sign in that overlay zone.
Unless there's a technical reason why DDA design committee should not be able to approve or disapprove these things, I would not be inclined to take away the authority that they apparently have today to approve or disapprove.
And do they still, even though the property's sold?
Yes, because the current developments that are potentially going to happen out there, when we get to that phase of the buildings, those go to the DDA design committee also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that not covered in the property contract between DDA and all that, or shouldn't it be there, or is it in city ordinance that we're regulating their relationship to the developer?
Where it is, Ken,
Just curious.
I'd like to chime in and say, I actually am in favor of removing approval of, because they're not a formal approval body. They're making the recommendation, right, Karen? They're reviewing the application. And yes, they're approving it from their standpoint, but it's not a formal approval. So I do kind of see where the suggestion is coming from.
Actually, I removed that this afternoon.
Oh.
Just to keep it as written.
yeah.
Oh, okay. So you had this in and then later you have a comment that says, never mind.
Yep. Never mind.
Okay.
Yeah, so you actually see this in two places in this ordinance. So there's the provision we're talking about now, that letter C about signs. And then further back up under 2.06.01.05, building and improvement design review and approval process within the Woodland Station overlay. Building and improvement designs must be submitted to the City of Woodland Park Downtown Development Authority's Design Review Committee for approval prior to construction.
Okay.
So I think that was all part of wanting to have that greater degree of review and oversight of the development of that area. You know, it's a key part of our downtown, and the DDA has a role in terms of seeing that develop. And this was a way to make sure they still had a clear part of that whole process. So I'm not inclined to touch it.
Right.
Okay.
Especially with
Yep.
live active projects at the moment.
Right.
And that's where I was coming from when I removed.
When you
buckets.
removed it, you went,
Yeah.
oh, it never, yeah.
Don't
Never
touch it.
mind.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, let's see, next comment at the end of this purpose statement of electronic message display overlay district. Larry, you had suggested within the Woodland Station overlay district, this one is specific to electronic message display, which is not within the Woodland Station.
It doesn't have to be there because it's under the whole Woodland Park Station section anyway.
Those
so
are
for-
two different things.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
out.
It happens to be within the overlay Woodland Park downtown
Other
district,
areas also.
but it's not central to to its structure that it'd be so.
I have to look at the maps. There is actually a map that has a boundary on it in
I
terms
thought it was a
of,
little smaller area than the full downtown, but.
I don't know what
but
they
don't
are,
have to
just-
be identical, so
I don't think the boundaries are identical.
they're not.
Yeah, so, and I don't know what those are. So it is definitely a different boundary.
Not part of Woodland Station.
It
Okay.
may overlap, but
May,
it's
but
definitely a different boundary. You know, this
Right.
polygon's this one's this.
All right. then that one is not applicable. Delete shown in section, yes, that's a, let's see.
Presumably, these maps are attached to the ordinance as it is now, and it says attached
Right.
there. You should delete section 14 and say, as shown in the attached exhibits A, B, C,
Okay,
and then attach them.
Yep.
that sounds good. 97, is this a new section? Yes. Does that answer your question, Val? All right,
I was searching in the other one, obviously, it's the
Right.
AD reference.
oh, okay, okay. Section 18 reference should be fixed, yes. And then, 99. Hold until this purpose is provided.
Well, it's going to say something to the effect that to implement the
Oh,
the flood
Yeah.
floodplain title.
Yeah, we beat this up earlier pretty good. So I know we need to work on some language
That's
here.
what I'm looking for.
okay. Boundaries, change title 20 to sections, okay.
Same thing, delete section 1848, et cetera, and then word attached before exhibit D.
All right, and then update references when signed chapter review is complete. Oh, yep, okay. I think that gets us to the end here.
Jen,
Yes,
my one question relative to 20, because this thing says the floodplain overlay area, but my reading of it today, to remind myself, I think there's more things than just the floodplain in 20. It's all related to
Yeah.
flood stuff, but
Yeah, those,
Yeah.
the Title 20 is, flood hazard regulations, and those are really dictated to us by both FEMA and the Colorado Water Conservation Board.
right.
So yeah, you're right, there is a lot of information there. So this really is more just,
It's just
kind of
floodplain and 20 or whatever number it has will remain for the
yeah,
other purposes.
yeah.
Okay, that was my concern.
So, and that's where, when we go to like reworking the language, it's more about, hey, we recognize the city, there are areas prone to the flooding, and there are delineated on maps. And this is where you go to see all of that. I once in a different community tried to more integrate the floodplain regulations. No. Because we did, and that was highly problematic for FEMA, the state. It was, talk about needing a big undo button. Oh, no. So, yeah.
Well, that was,
There are
that
times.
kind of thought process was what I looked at it, said, wait a minute. We're not dumping the rest of that stuff, are we? Oh,
No,
good.
it's like, look over here for all that information is what this needs to do for us.
I like to
So, I-
supplement the flood regulations with this overlay. That
Yeah.
makes a whole lot of sense.
Or at least say, go look here, you know.
Yes.
I
Yes.
had a bit of a problem with 2060402 applicability, where it says boundaries and areas set by FEMA to which the flood plain overlay areas apply can be found in Title 20 of this municipal code. Well, there's a lot of stuff in municipal code that tells you where to look at it, but you can't find the boundaries and areas. There's no map, there's no nothing. The answer
Yeah.
is you've got to go elsewhere. You go to a FEMA map to it. So you can't find them in there.
Yeah, no, that needs
Yes,
to
you
be,
can.
that's why, so we
If
need,
you do that, you've got to haul out, you can go looking for a map all the way through it. You'll never find it.
so right now what you're seeing is like, hey, I have this idea. It's obviously not been vetted and finessed. So that's why it's as rough as it is.
Okay.
And your comments are spot on in terms of, you guys got to fix this. So I appreciate that.
Look, comment number 102, Lee. up here on the board. The.
Yep.
Look at comment 102 that I wrote, and you can see there are two sections in the floodplain code that
Which-
talks specifically about what this is, what it applies to. It talks about a map and it talks about the study.
Yeah, no, and I said, no, there is reference to a map, but you won't find the map there. You gotta go, you go ask around and somebody else will have a map.
The map, I think, is for the entire county, isn't it? Not just one part.
It's different sections.
Well, and they've gone digital, so, you know, there's like that element too. So it's, the problem is it's a daisy chain scavenger hunt of go look here, go look here, go look here, see this website. So that's part of what's going on.
Because of that, to do what you're trying to do here, I think, is indicate to people, you know, some words that'll tell them, do I need to go look at a floodplain overlay for my particular property or not? And the answer, you're not gonna readily be able to do that here.
Yeah,
It's more like saying just be aware, any given property might be subject to floodplain regulations. If you want to know about those, look at Title 20, and it may or may not apply to you. That's sort of what,
yeah. So
Okay.
we'll work on that language.
Yeah.
We'll work on that. But currently, there's like no real reference to that anywhere other than, you know, you've
right,
got.
no, so I'm saying it's useful to put something in, but it's gonna be
It
vague
needs to
and
not be
terribly
this.
helpful.
And my battery just died, so I think we're done. I think so.
I think we got through 106 comments. Any additional comments from the commissioners? Hearing none, we'll move on to reports. Karen, anything to share with us tonight?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We have a regular
commissioners.
meeting coming up.
What's this?
We have a regular meeting coming up, the
Um,
first of February.
February 8th is your next planning commission meeting, and we have one item on the agenda. And that is a public hearing related to a preliminary plat and a conditional use permit. And that topic is for Victory Life Church over by Trout Creek Road and Highway 24. Potentially a long hearing night. So that's what I know.
Anything from commissioners?
And then actually real quickly,
yes.
you will have a second meeting in February. I forget what the number day is. And right now there's just one item on that agenda, and that's should be a much lighter evening dairy. And that's Mr. Page asking to extend his PUD again for the Best Western.
This is what, number 3?
Well, we'll talk about it in the appropriate hearing, please. So that's what's coming up on the horizon.
I think we all let the new kids figure that one out.
So that's where we are. That's all I've got this evening, sir.
Thank you. Hearing nothing else, it's 9:23, meeting's adjourned.